Hello and welcome to Debunking Libertarian Memes. Today we're going to be looking at the meme you see on your screen right now. It came off of Instagram, but I'm sure it's older than Instagram. I'm sure it's like one of those forwards from your racist grandpa, one of those. But this one actually doesn't even involve race. Most libertarian memes don't. This one's about how overbearing the government is and how much of a burden it is to be a citizen of the U.S. And the post itself isn't too bad, but the caption was pretty snarky. It was, "So this is the freedom we're fighting for?" So I just figured I'd go through step by step and address why you need the government's permission to, for example, build a house. And that's what we're going to start with. So the reason you need the government's permission to build a house is actually a pretty libertarian one. It's to stop freeloaders. That's one of the reasons anyway. You have to get a permit to make sure that A, you're building the house on land you own, and B, so that your house doesn't, cave in and kill your child, because that way it's up to zoning, stuff like that. Next up we have eating food without the government's permission. This one I really don't know what they're trying to get at. You can't eat food without the government's permission. I mean, personally I can go up in my backyard and pick some blueberries that hopefully the government doesn't know about. Maybe they're talking about food labeling, but that's just for people with allergies to check, like, if they're gonna die if they eat these peanuts, So maybe if someone who is a libertarian wants to comment what the hell they mean by eat food without the government's permission, that'd be great. Next up we have drive a car. And this one's really simple. It's that people don't die. Imagine if you could send your 11-year-old down to the grocery store to pick up some beans. That would be chaotic. He'd be all over the place. And I'm sure that some 11-year-olds will be able to drive great. But the idea of the license is so that everybody on the road knows how to drive pretty well. And making it say you wouldn't even need a license to drive is ridiculous. So, owning a gun is sort of like the entrance token to become a libertarian and to join the libertarian club, You gotta own a gun. But, you need the government's permission to own a gun just so that it stops people from getting guns that shouldn't get guns. Obviously, it doesn't stop everybody, but it's a deterrent, and it should help some people. And it really shouldn't hurt anybody who wants to buy a gun that should buy one. I mean, it might be an inconvenience, but I don't think it'd be anything past that. So, the fishing license one actually sort of made sense to me at first until I did some research. But basically, you need the government's permission to go fishing because they need to keep a tab on A, how many people are fishing, and B, the money that you spend on a fishing license, at least in Illinois, just goes back to pay the cost of stocking trout into lakes statewide. So essentially, you're paying not only to fish, but for the ability of fishing. You're paying so that there are fish in the lake. The next one is kind of funny. It's that you can't get married without the government's permission, but the only reason you'd get married in the first place is for government purposes, so you can file your taxes jointly and stuff like that. You can be dating someone for your entire life and it'd be exactly the same as marriage. There is no difference except for a certificate by the government that says you're married. So the next one is you can't leave the country without the government's permission. And this is kind of a funny one. First of all, any true libertarian would never want to leave the great land of America. But assuming for some reason they wanted to leave to Canada, you need the government's permission to go to Canada, because if you don't, that's called illegal immigration. Notice how it doesn't say anything about entering the country without the government's permission, because libertarians are against that. But for some reason they're okay with them leaving the country because they're white, they're not Mexican. You can't start a business without the government's permission. That's because the government needs to tax your business, so that people don't do shady stuff. The only reason you'd want to start a business without the government's permission is because you don't want to pay taxes in the first place. You can't fly on a commercial plane without the government's permission. And first off, I just think it's funny that they added commercial. I have a feeling this same thing went around for a while, and then someone said, "Hey, you can fly your own plane without the government's permission," and then they're like, "Well, you can't fly a commercial plane, can you?" And it's true, you can't fly on a commercial plane without the government's permission because of this thing that happened called 9/11. I'm sure some of you people know about that. It's where two people were on commercial planes, and then they threw them into the Twin Towers and the Pentagon. So now if you might be a terrorist, they need to check to make sure you're not going to fly the plane into, like, somewhere else. Our final point today will be, you can't take drugs without the government's permission. And, well, you can take drugs without the government's permission. A lot of people like to party. They do alcohol. Not sure if you've heard of that drug, but that one's legal. So as long as you're over 21, you just buy it at the store. You don't really need the government's permission for that. Also, caffeine's another one of those stimulants that you can take. But if you're going to take one of the ones like morphine, you should need the government's permission because they don't want you to die. They're just out for the general safety of the public, which is pretty sure in the Constitution, promote the general welfare. Most libertarians, they carry the pocket Constitution, but they always forget to read it, it seems like. So yeah, thanks for watching. Hopefully this was condescending enough. I tried to make it as obnoxious as possible, so thank you for watching.